Hello everyone, myself Charanjit Singh. In this video, I'm going to start a new chapter for class 10th, that is chapter number 3rd, metals and non-metals. So I'm going to begin this chapter with very basic definition, or I'm going to define metals and non-metals here. So basically metals are those which have tendency to lose electron. Okay, I'm repeating, metals are those which are having tendency to lose electron. Means metals which are, or elements which are basically having tendency to lose electron, like which are having valency of 1, 2 and 3, they will lose electron, so they will be categorized as metal. For example, sodium, atomic number of sodium is 11. I can write electronic configuration of sodium is 281. So it can lose one electron to become stable. So when an element lose electron, they are being categorized as metal. Similarly, in case of non-metals are those which are having tendency to gain electron. For example, sulfur, nitrogen. Nitrogen, atomic number of nitrogen is 7. I can write nitrogen as 2 and 5. Basically, this nitrogen to become stable, it will gain 3 electron. So when it gain 3 electron, that means it will be under the category of non-metal, because non-metal are those which are having a tendency to gain electrons. Now I am going to start with the properties of the metals and non-metal. First of all, I am going to talk about the physical property of metals. So first one property is luster. Luster means shiny. Metals are having shining surface, for example gold, silver, etc. Next one is hardness. Basically metals are generally hard, for example iron, copper, but we are having some exception like sodium, potassium and lithium. These are the exception which does not shows any kind of hardness or so much hardness. Next one is state. Generally metal exists in solid state. For exception we are having here again, that is called mercury. So mercury is basically a liquid in the room temperature, but other metals are basically solid in state. Next one is malleability. Malleability means the elements or the metals which can be drawn into a thin sheets. So basically metal can be beaten into a thin sheet. For example gold and silver are most malleable metal that we can have. Okay. Next property is ductility. Ductility means drawn into the wires. So metals can basically drawn into the thin wires. For example copper, aluminium that we are using in our household, as well as for electronic transmission in other devices. Next one is conductor of heat and electricity. Basically metals are good conductor of heat and electricity because they are donating electrons. So they contain some cations, means positive ions, because they are losing the electrons. So they can conduct electricity very easily, and those who can conduct electricity, they are a good conductor of heat also. For example silver, copper are the best conductor of the electricity. Next one is density. Density means mass upon volume, or you can say density is what? Density is a in per unit volume how much mass of the element is being concentrated. So generally metals are having high density and high melting point. Next one is sonorous. Sonorous means when you are going to strike a metal with a hard surface, they will produce sound. Those that will be called as sonorous. So metals are basically sonorous. Next one is oxides. So metals oxides are basically, they are basic in nature. This property we have studied in our previous chapter also. Basically metals forms basic oxide. Now next is physical properties of non-metals. So first of all, luster. Basically non-metals do not have shiny surface except iodine. Next one is hardness. So basically non-metals are soft except we are having again diamond. Next one is state. Non-metal exists in solid as well as they can exist in, there are some elements which can exist in gaseous state. Exception again we are having here is bromine. Okay. Next one is malleability. Malleability means non-metal cannot malleable means they are not malleable. Next one is ductility. Ductility means they cannot be drawn into the wires. Non-metals cannot drawn into the wires, and non-metals are basically a bad conductor of heat and electricity. But we are having exception, that is graphite, which is a conductor of heat and electricity. Next one, density. Generally non-metals have low density and very low melting point. Okay. Next one is sonorous. Non-metals are basically non-sonorous, means when you are going to strike non-metal to a hard surface, they do not produce any kind of sound. Next one is oxide. Non-metal forms acidic oxide. This again we have studied in our previous chapter, means non-metal always produce acidic oxides. Next is I am going to compare the chemical properties of metals. So first chemical property is metals, how they are going to react with air. In air mainly we are talking about oxygen, that is O2. Okay, so basically when metal react with oxygen they form metal oxide. For example, if you take an example of sodium, when they react with oxygen they will form Na2O. Okay, this way they will form Na2O. Next example I have shown, when copper react with oxygen they form copper oxide. Similarly we are having aluminium, when it react with oxygen it will form aluminium oxide. But metals shows different behavior with the oxygen. So let's study how they are showing, what kind of behavior they are showing with the oxygen. So first one I want to introduce sodium and potassium. These both are very reactive. They react so vigorously they catch fire even when we kept in open place. Also we keep them immersed in a kerosene oil. So they cannot, so that they should not catch any kind of fire when they kept in open. Now next is magnesium, aluminium, zinc and lead are basically covered with a thin layer of oxide which prevent from further oxidation. Means so that they cannot have another kind or further kind of rusting, or you can say further kind of oxidation. They are being covered with the layer of thin oxide. And iron do not burn on heating, but its iron freely burns vigorously, means very speedily burns. Next one is copper does not burn, but it is coated with black copper oxide. So means again this point and this point is resembling, means copper basically forms an oxide layer out to its outer surface, and so that it cannot be further oxidized. Next one is Au and Ag, means gold and silver does not react with the oxygen. So in this page we have studied how metals shows different reactivity towards the oxygen. This question is going to come in the competitive exam always, to check your knowledge level. Now next one is amphoteric oxide. Amphoteric are those which can act as a oxidizing agent as well as reducing agent. Means the amphoteric oxide, I can say amphoteric oxides are those which can act as acid as well as the bases. Okay, so means amphoteric oxide, again I am repeating, are those which can act as acid as well as bases. Okay, for example aluminium oxide, when aluminium oxide react with an acid it will form salt, that is aluminium chloride and water. So basically this is an acid. Okay, here we form salt and water. When we know we can form salt when an acid react with the base, so means aluminium oxide here is acting as a base. So same as it is in the next reaction, you can see here we are using NaOH, means sodium hydroxide, which is a base. When aluminium oxide react with the sodium hydroxide, it is forming sodium meta-aluminate and water, which is a salt. Okay, salt and water it is producing. Means here you can say this is a base, and this base should be combined with acid to form this kind of salt. Okay, so here aluminium oxide is acting as an acid, and we have seen here aluminium oxide is acting as a base. So from this reaction we can conclude there are certain types of chemical or elements which can act as an acid as well as base. So these are under the category of amphoteric oxides. So next is reaction of metal with water. Okay, how do metal react with water? So basically metal, when they react with water, they can form metal oxide or they can form metal hydroxide, and they will liberate hydrogen. For example, metal, I am taking sodium, when they react with water it will give you sodium hydroxide or hydrogen. Similarly we can react iron with water, then it will form iron oxide and hydrogen. Next is when metal oxide react with water, it can form metal hydroxide. For example, I can take metal oxide as Na2O. When it react with H2O, it will form 2NaOH. Okay, it can form 2NaOH. Now one more interesting thing is that different matter react with different form of water. For example, cold water, steam, hot water. Let's see. Different matter react with a different form of water. For example, sodium, potassium and calcium react with the cold water. Aluminium, iron and zinc react with steam. Magnesium react with hot water. And calcium and magnesium, basically they float on the water surface as bubble of hydrogen because they sticks to their surface. Gold, silver, copper and iron and lead does not react with water. So we can assume, so this basically depend on the nature of the metal, so how they are going to react with the different form of water. In next video we will continue this chapter. Thank you.